A well-cooked steak, tough to beat in my books. But do you sear first and then do indirect, or do you do a reverse sear and sear at the end? Now, reverse sear has been very popular for the last bunch of years. The question is, do you rest before or after the sear? Let's find out. What's up, steak fans? Welcome back to Patio. My name's Jake. You're watching Run Cook. Today on the channel, we're talking steak. More importantly, we're talking reverse sear and when to rest your steak. See, some people do the reverse sear, let it rest for 15 minutes, and then they sear it. Others reverse sear, sear, and then let rest. Now, for me personally, I typically rest before the sear, but I don't know which is better. So today I have a 30-day dry aged, it's about a 20-ounce boneless New York strip from La Fridia's. I've talked about them before. They're in New Jersey. Look up La Fridia Meats. Not sponsored, great meat. I order a lot of it. But what I've got is I'm going to cut this in half. So we've got pretty much the same piece. We're going to get out our meter plus. We're going to put that guy in there. Put this guy in the middle. Now, what I've done here is I've put some salt on it. We need some pepper. Here's my pepper. I put salt on about 2 hours ago. So I gave herself a little bit of a salt brine. We're not doing anything else. Really, I just want to let the meat do the talking here, and I want to find out which is best. And let's talk about how we're cooking today. Obviously, we're reverse searing. I'll miss some spots here. There we go. We got both ends. Both ends. Well, there's actually 6 if you count the sides. Regardless, today what we did, we got the Kamado fired up. We used some Fogo charcoal, and I've got the basket splitter in there. So I've got half of it open, half of it closed. We're gonna use half because I need time to get the reverse sear part, and then I need to be able to get this guy at the temperature so that it's nice and hot. So we filled up half the basket with Fogo charcoal. I got out my grill gun. We fired it up for about 45 seconds and opened up the bottom vent, opened up the top vent. Once this guy got up to about 150, I started to close it down a little bit. Now it's like 45 degrees outside, so I wanted to get a slow start. I've talked about this before. You do not want to heat a Kamado grill up too quickly in the winter, especially a Kamado. I talk about that in our 12 mistakes video. Put a link to that up here, but you want to bring this guy up to temperature slowly. Get it heat soaked, right? How do these things work, right? We've got the meat touching a surface, then we've got air that's hot, that's circulating convection, and then really we want the dome working. The dome's gonna suck up that heat and radiate it back into the meat, so we're firing heat, 360 degrees. So we got this guy up. It's about 260 dome temp, which means it's gonna be closer to 225 grill temp. We're using our meter block here, so we're gonna monitor both. We'll put this over here. What we're gonna do is I have the half rack in here, and then I've got the full rack. So we're gonna start them up here. Luckily I can touch these without getting my hands dirty. Put them both like this. They're pretty much identical sizes. One's a little thicker. And we're gonna just close this up. Gonna get out our Meter Plus app here. And we're gonna grab probe 1, set up a cook. We're doing beef. Now these guys are New York strips, boneless. That's my favorite. We're gonna turn this down to 125. And then we're gonna get the other one here. Same thing, beef, New York strip. Turn it down to 125. Now, I personally like my steak a little bit beyond rare, more towards medium than actually medium rare. So these are gonna finish probably in that 130, 132 when we're done. Remember, we're gonna pull it off. One of them is gonna come up the temperature while we rest it. The other one is gonna get seared and it's gonna come up, and then it's gonna rest and come down. So they're gonna be pretty close to each other. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna wait till these are done, and then I'm gonna take one of them and I'm gonna pull it off and let it rest. I'm gonna open up my vents, get us into sear mode, and there'll be maybe a minute or two, 3 difference between the final times that they're done, but they should be pretty close, and we're gonna compare them. Our first one's done. Let's get it off. I'm gonna assume it's the smaller one. There's our number 1. So this is resting now. The other one says it's got about 5 minutes. So we're gonna have a little bit more of a difference. I wanna get this guy wrapped 5 minutes before that one's done. And I'm gonna slightly open up my vent. It's not gonna be enough to really affect this, but I just wanna start a little bit more air movement so we can pick up our temperatures. All right, so this one's just finishing up. We're gonna open up our top vent, and we're gonna pull out our bottom door. That's gonna give us the maximum of air through there. I'm gonna pull this off real quick. And we wanna rest this one the same way. If you don't have a cooling rack, just up off the plate. All right, it's not gonna take long to get this up to temperature. I've got our bottom vent wide open. That'll help. The coals are getting hot already. We've got the top vent open. What I will do is just let this sit here for a few minutes. I'm gonna get a piece of tin foil just to cover this. I don't want the temperature to come down too much. Just like that, we've got some tin foil. And our dome's already up to 350, so it won't take too long. Again, I've got the lower rack in, so it's right over the charcoal. So we don't necessarily have to get our dome crazy hot, because as we go towards the heat, we're automatically gonna add 200 or 300 degrees pretty quickly. And just like that, our dome was at 500, so we're gonna burp this bad boy, and you can see there's a very hot flame going on down there. Let's take this guy. Actually, and we're gonna let this guy go a couple minutes aside here. In about a minute, we're gonna give this a turn. Right away, you can see we've got a great sear on there. Like I said, it's hot down below. It's only been about 45 seconds, but she's climbing pretty darn quick now, so we're gonna turn it down a little bit just so we can keep them even. Very important when you're cooking with really high heat on these guys. Ooh, burp them. All right, so that guy is really seared at that point in time. So we're gonna close this down a little bit more. Just gonna close the bottom a little bit. That way, when we get the next one on, they'll be pretty close. I mean, this was shooting up to 550, 575 pretty darn quickly. So it's definitely not gonna take too long on this other side. All right, so we've got a pretty good sear. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna loosely temp this guy. I'm gonna go put it on a rack, and we've got about 6 minutes before the other one's done. So we'll bring this one in, bring the other one out when it's done. We'll sear it, and then we'll carve it in. Let's get this one seared. Temp sitting around 545. I kind of dialed it back. Remember, we were swinging up to 575 before. Obviously, the grate's got a little bit more time to preheat, so I'm trying to keep them close. We'll open this up again just to try and even it out a little bit. And the last one seared for about 3 minutes and 25 seconds, somewhere in there. So depending on how we look, we'll be close. Let's see how we're doing. It's been about 45 seconds. Pretty good. Give that a turn. It's not quite as hot as it was. I'm gonna open this up a little bit. We'll give ourselves about another 45 seconds. All right, set this guy on top of my fork. Close that down a little bit. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna go get the other one. This is gonna get just a second to cool off, so I don't burn my mouth off. The moment of truth. We have the one here that we rested first and then seared. And then this is the one that we seared and then rested. They both look good. We're gonna slice right in the middle of them just to try and keep it even. Yep, stand up there, little guy. All right, we'll give these a sec just to bloom out. Look very juicy. That's about right for me, right? These are probably 132-ish. This one definitely got a little chart on the one side, you can see. The one that didn't rest first has a much more even line. So this is the side that I got first because it had a little bit more time to preheat, but they're pretty close. I mean, look, as we bloom out, we're getting some good color. Let's just try it. Which one to try first? Well, you know, this is the way that I normally do it, so we're gonna try this one right here. Kind of fell in my juice here. Try that one. And we'll get this guy over here. From a texture perspective, this feels a little softer. What stands out to me right away on this one is just the crust. The crust is good. This one, what I did is I tented it, but I tried to make it kind of like a dome side to side, but I folded up the ends so that the heat could get out. My fingers lie. My mouth doesn't lie. This is a lot, not a lot, but it is definitely more tender. But the crust disappears. This one's definitely The crust on this one is still crunchy. The crust is still here, but it's not pronounced. I kind of like the crunch of the one that rested first better, but this is more tender, which is interesting. Yeah, I guess just because this got a whole chance to rest and come down to temperature a little bit better, and this one's still kind of in shock because it just came off the heat. But this is definitely more tender. Do we have a winner? I don't know. I think it's going to come down to personal preference. For me personally, I really like the crust of this one a lot better. But I can appreciate how tender that is. I mean, this is New York strip. This is my favorite cut of meat, right? It has a little bit more chew than, say, a ribeye, but I like that chew. But this one is tender. I mean, it's pretty impressive how tender that is. The difference on a 30-day dry aged steak is pretty substantial. These are quality prime dry aged. So I guess you've got to either try the experiment yourself or decide, are you a crust guy or would you prefer it to be a little bit more tender? I don't think you can go wrong either way. An eye opener for sure. Thanks as always for watching. If you learned something, give it a thumbs up. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Doing new videos every weekend. I'll see you soon.